Defense perks can dictate if you often live or die, but sadly most offensive perks in 76 are not really worth your slots. However, there are a few everyone should be using. Hello everyone! Welcome back to another Fallout 76 video. It's time to go over the strongest defense perks that can boost and fit any build and allow you to survive basically anything. A few days ago I made a video featuring the 10 best damage perks to empower your build. So if you feel like you could use a little bit more damage during your adventures, well, then feel free to check it out if you haven't yet. Anyway, before we proceed to my top defense perk list, let me inform you that today's sponsor is Monster Legends, a strategy mobile game where you can breed and collect dozens and dozens of different monsters, select your habitat, hatch your eggs, and train your creatures into epic monsters. You can even cross different elemental creatures to breed hybrid ones with unique skills. If you're happy with the result, you can always sell your unwanted monsters and get some nice gold for them. Anyway, in this game by Social Point, there are plenty of mini-games like Spinning the Wheel or the Castle's Maze, where you can try your luck to win awesome rewards. Let's not forget about the different combat modes, starting by the adventure map, where you can form a team and fight other creatures and bosses. As you progress, you can unlock dungeons, live duels, and even the multiplayer mode. Now, no matter who you fight, the most important thing is to always be prepared with a diverse team and strike with elemental attacks that counter the enemy monsters. If you would like to give this game a try, check the link in the description below. Now back to the guide, let's improve your defenses, shall we? At the very bottom of the list, I added Rad Resistant, mostly because this is pretty much the only generic perk we have to boost your radiation defenses. If your gear is lacking this specific defense, you can compensate a little bit with this endurance perk, but keep in mind that 40 extra defense at rank 4 is not going to make you immune to radiation or anything alike. After all, you need around 1000 defense to get close to immunization. Anyway, before I show you some tests, let me advise you about a few things. For instance, if you have a balanced armor set like Secret Service with a fair amount of radiation defense already, then you're better off without this perk. Also, if you are playing a full HP build, I recommend you to use the legendary perk What's Rads instead, with 300 rad defense and 6 radiation restoration per second at max rank. It's really powerful with lots more value. Now, how good or bad is the rad resistant perk? Well, to be fair with you, the effect of this perk is minimal. It translates into 1 less radiation damage per second in most cases. From 11 here, it went to 10 when I equipped the perk at rank 4, and versus a slightly stronger source, this time it went from 13 rads per second without the perk active to 12 rads with the rank 4. So it's clearly nothing amazing or extraordinary. Nothing alike. Inside the nuked area, the logic doesn't change. With the perk on, I receive 16 rads per second, and without it, I receive 17 rads. If we move to enemies, things get even worse. For example, the radiation ghouls can inflict the exact same rads with or without the rank 4 perk active, which is pretty strange. I get 25 rads per normal ghoul hit and 45 rads per feral ghoul hit. So yeah, in the end this perk is a small support and a decent helping hand for new characters or those with no radiation defense at all. However, I don't really recommend it for endgame though. I mean, there are far better perks out there, and a decent armor set should give you more than enough radiation defense, so you don't exactly need this perk, but it can still be useful, especially in certain events. There are a few ways to increase your defenses through perks, and using Evasive under Agility is one way to do it. At rank 3, you can unlock up to 45 extra physical and energy defense, depending on your agility points, but as you can probably imagine if you watch the rad resistant point, about 50 more defense doesn't make a lot of difference, sadly. I conducted several tests though with 13 agility, which equals 39 extra defense, and in most cases the damage difference was minimal. Just like this side-by-side comparison with a Scourge bashing me, the inflicted damage is basically the same. Well, this is not the best example because he's basically tickling me, so I moved to a stronger target. I let his good sir Blood Eagle hit me with and without Evasive on, and I had a hard time telling the difference as well. I mean, it does look like the Eagle did slightly less damage with the perk active, but I'm not so sure. Anyway, this is definitely not a game-changing perk either. That's why I recommend you pairing Evasive with IronClad. First of all, make sure to use Evasive Volley if your agility is high, above 10 points at least. And secondly, keep in mind it works better when paired with other defense boosting perks. Alone, on its own, it will not be the savior you might be looking for. I can tell you that much. Talking about IronClad is one of the most popular defense perks ever, and I never really understood why exactly. I mean, the best results cost 5 endurance points, and it's not like 50 extra defense will change the world for you, as I already pointed out with the previous 2 perks. At rank 5, this perk is worth about 1 extra armor piece, but in the battlefield it hardly changes anything. However, when paired with other defense perks, things start to make a bit more sense. If you unlock 45 physical and energy defense with Evasive and then 50 extra with IronClad, we are talking about 100 extra defense. Now that's something more meaningful and a lot more perceptible in terms of damage absorption. In this side by side, you can clearly see how I take substantially less damage from the same scorched enemy with both perks active. In another test versus a protect on melee attack, it's also clear that 100 more defense does matter and it could dictate if you live or die. But when it comes to half of that value, well, it doesn't matter as much. What I'm trying to say is that such perks alone don't generate a meaningful or effective defense boost. But if you pair them together, they stack up and improve your defenses in a much more perceptible way. Alright, now let's move on to some better perks, the type you equip and you are immediately impressed. Sort of. Well, Nerd Rage is often associated with bloodied or low HP builds, but what if I told you it can also work as your last shield and hope to stay alive? I mean, this perk only triggers below 20% HP, and at max rank it will unlock a 40 defense boost for all types of defense, together with 20% more damage and 15% more stamina regeneration. Sometimes the best defense is a great offense, right? And in this case, if you fall below 20% HP, you immediately get this sort of second wind that will substantially increase your chances to survive whatever you are fighting. I know 40 extra defense doesn't make a lot of difference by itself, but if you consider the other 2 buffs, then things start to look much better. Moreover, in combination with a few other defense perks, such as Dodgy or Serendipity, Nerd Rage is extremely powerful and it's not a perk you should totally dismiss. The Escape Artist under Agility is one of those perks not a lot of people use, mostly because they associate it with stealth builds. But listen, it's not like that. Sure, it does benefit stealth builds the most, but anyone can benefit from this perk. How comes? Well, for just 1 agility point, you get to keep your stealth while running, and you can sneak anytime to lose your enemy's aggro. Let's say you ran out of ammo, or you simply don't feel like killing every single enemy you come across. Or better, let's say you want to quickly fast travel away somewhere, but the enemy aggro won't let you. No problem. Just run and crouch. I mean, this perk doesn't work all the time, plus some enemies seem to be kinda immune to it, like rat scorpions or even wolves. But it does work consistently with most enemies. Sometimes all you have to do is insist. Just run a bit, crouch repeatedly, and wait for your dangerous status to change to caution. When that happens, it means you lost whatever enemy was chasing you down, just like it happened here. This dog was after me for a while, but after a few tries, the perk triggered and the dog completely lost me, even though he was a few meters away staring at me. I guess guess glowing dogs lost their smell sense, huh? Anyway, the Escape Artist is a compact perk, and I think it brings plenty of value into any build, especially if you consider the fact it only costs 1 agility point. Okay, we are now halfway through the list, and for the 5th place I added Suppressor under Charisma. The concept of this perk is wonderful. It can reduce any enemy's damage output by up to 30%. However, that debuff only lasts for 2 seconds once you hit the target. Now, if you consider most servers don't work very efficiently, server lag, server delay, and bugs happen on a daily basis to most of us. So this 2 seconds window frame is a true enemy with no counter. I fought a behemoth here to test how well the Suppressor perk works at rank 3, and it seems to be doing its job, at least. If I'm quick enough, the behemoth did way less damage with his attacks, while compared to his damage when I did not hit him under that 2 second time frame. And I must say, 30% less damage does make a huge difference, especially when it comes to elite enemies or bosses. So if you play strategically and you don't mind stressing out about calculating enemy hits to ensure they always land on you while the debuff is active, then your chances to survive anything will become much higher with Suppressor. Just remember, this perk is not for everyone though. It's very demanding on the player, and as I mentioned, server stability is not the best in 76, so that will most likely play against you while trying to use this perk as intended. Next we have Fireproof, one of the most popular perks in the history of 76. If Fireproof is not part of your build yet, please do yourself a favor and equip it right away. No joke, this perk is one of the most useful ones in the entire game. Why, you may ask? Well, that's because at rank 3 you receive 45% less damage from all explosions and flame attacks. In other words, Fireproof makes you kinda immune to almost every single explosion in the game, and fire will suddenly become an environmental effect, apart from very few exceptions. Okay, let's get into specifics now. First of all, Fireproof ensures that all your explosive weapons won't contribute to a sad story of suicide. Yeah, without Fireproof, it's very easy to kill yourself, especially with explosive shotguns. But if you use this perk, your explosive weapons will be neutralized. No more self-injury from them. Another benefit from Fireproof is the fact that most environmental explosions won't hurt you anymore, and most fire will not burn you either. It's just like walking through visual effects. Now, if you don't use or took a while to use Fireproof, then you are probably traumatized from legendary robots, right? Because these bad boys explode a few seconds after going down, and they can easily kill a player who's not using Fireproof. But guess what? At rank 3, you are totally immune to their self-detonations. On the other hand, suicidal enemies will still hurt you. Some more than others though. I feel like daily ops suiciders hurt the most, so be very careful with them, even with Fireproof rank 3 active. Anyway, as I said before, most fire won't hurt you anymore, but ignited coal, for example, will still burn you. Not much though, so that's a plus, as you can see in this side-by-side comparison. However, flame or fire enemies can hurt you all the same, whether it's some blood eagle using a flamer or just a fire floater. They can still damage you harshly with Fireproof rank 3 on, so watch out for those dangerous targets. Well, at least the scorched sonic waves can be fully neutralized with this perk. Yeah, it will no longer deal any damage to you at rank 3, it becomes just visual pollution to you, which is great in this case. So yeah, make sure to use Fireproof, everyone. It includes so many benefits, it's like a compact and dense perk that shouldn't be missed by anyone. Well, now it's time to enter the top 3 defense perks, which I often call the Holy Trinity. Seriously, you guys should try it. Use the 3 perks together and see for yourself how well it works. Dodgy, Ricochet, and Serendipity is the answer to stay alive even for bloodied builds. It's insanely good and very reliable too. Let's start with Dodgy under Agility, one of the best damage block perks and defense ones we have. You can avoid 30% of incoming damage at the cost of 30 action points per hit at rank 3. Now, blocking 30% damage per hit is amazing, but losing 30 stamina every time is not so convenient. In fact, when you are getting hit a lot, your stamina bar gets depleted in no time, which is a huge con for VATS builds, for example. Even for any other build really, playing with no stamina most of the time means your sprinting is conditioned as well as your VATS hits. It's a really harsh trade-off in my opinion. Anyway, a while ago Bethesda slightly changed Dodgy to ensure each trigger will not consume large stacks of stamina at once. However, that change did not affect every enemy, sadly. For example, shotgun enemies can still deplete like half your stamina bar in just one hit, as shown here in the footage. This Scorched doesn't care, he just drains my stamina no stop, even though I'm standing still, not draining any stamina on its own. Now don't get me wrong, the perk is great, the damage block is awesome, but the trade-off is not always worth it. To counter the stamina drain and to balance things out a little bit, I highly recommend you guys to use stamina regen perks with Dodgy, like Action Boy Girl or Marathoner, if you can afford it, of course, because it makes a huge difference. Another essential part of the Holy Trinity combo is Ricochet, a very underrated luck perk that works basically like Dodgy, except there is no trade-off. Literally, there is no cost or trade for this perk, it's awesome. Instead, the trigger chance is substantially lower than Dodgy. At rank 3, you get an 18% chance to deflect back a ranged enemy hit. In other words, you get to block that hit and deflect a small portion of the enemy's damage back to the attacker. You can ignore the damage deflection though, because it's like tickling the enemy, doesn't do much. Moreover, I know that relying on 18% is basically relying on pure luck, but A, keep in mind that most ranged enemies have a quite rapid fire, like super mutants, scorched, blood eagles, cultists, and many others, so the more you get hit, the higher is the chance for Ricochet to trigger. In my experience, Ricochet triggers rather often at rank 3, and it's another protective layer you can have, because it blocks ranged hits, it denies enemy damage, and that's all you could hope for from a top tier defense perk, right? At the top of the list, we have Serendipity, the last member of the Holy Trinity combo, and a must-have perk for any build, really. I have been playing with the rank 3 since the release mounts, and I never take it out, except for testing purposes. This perk gives you a 45% chance to avoid all incoming damage while under 30% HP. So just like Nerd Rage, this perk works like an emergency protocol, except it's automatic and much more efficient in terms of defense, because it simply blocks all the incoming damage. I mean, it blocks all of it, just like Dodgy can do, but in this case, there's absolutely no cost. The only requirement is the 30% HP trigger. Moreover, a 45% chance to block damage is quite high. It's like playing with a 50-50 chance to receive no damage at all if you are playing with a bloodied build. It triggers all the time, really. Whenever I fight, I get spammed by the alert on the left side as shown, and that's pretty awesome. That's everything you want because it's protecting you, and it's a beautiful thing. Anyhow, with the Holy Trinity, you can take dozens and dozens of hits, and most of them will simply be ignored. They won't register due to all these perks you are stacking which deny damage. That's the trick for a great defense in 76. Yep, the main defense strategy is not to increase your flat defense. Instead, you should stack damage block perks. After all, you don't need to reduce any incoming damage if you are just ignoring it. Isn't it like that? I hope now it makes sense how people can go around tanking lots of enemies at once and still survive even though they started the fight with some 20-30% HP. Just like I'm doing here, tanking half of the White Spring robots and breaking my entire armor in the process. Well, totally worth it. Anyway, to be honest with you, all you need to become this damage proof is to use the Holy Trinity combo: Serendipity, Ricochet, and Dodgy together with Fireproof. These 4 perks are essential for any great defense. The rest is pretty much complementary, extra safety if you can afford it or feel like you need it. Anyway, these are my top 10 defense perks live after update 26. I hope you were able to learn something new and improve your build defense-wise. Now, a huge thanks to Monster Legends for sponsoring this guide. If you feel like breeding and training some epic monsters, go ahead and try this mobile game for free. The link is right below the video. Feel free to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed, and as usual, a huge shout out to all my supporters. You guys are the best. Well then, that's it for now. I will catch you all later. Until then, take care. Adeus. Bye bye.